Yeah, ready. Okay.
You ready?
Yes,
Good.
okay. Good evening. Welcome to the September 21st, 2017 meeting of the Granada Community Services District. And we had a closed session and
No reportable action
no
was
reportable
taken.
action. Okay, so we start off with that. Do we have a roll call? Good. Do roll call? Oh, I can do it. Sometimes.
President Jim Blanchard,
Here.
Vice President Leonard Warren,
Present.
Director Matthew Clark,
Here.
Director Barbara Guy,
Here.
Director Dave Seaton is absent, and at the table is General Manager Chuck Duffy, Legal Counsel Jonathan Whitwer, I'm Delia Camito, the Assistant General Manager.
Thank you, thank you. And so we have, anybody, we have a general public comment for anybody speaking generally on topics? Okay, so we're gonna have everything would be on top, on the agendas. Okay, so then we have the first item, then it would be consideration of natural resources conservation, a management district for the Burnham Strip parcel.
Delia, you want to take this
Oh,
one?
sure.
I think you've got the first three, actually.
And
They're all
Okay, well,
apart from-
first of all, I'm sorry that someone from the RCD could not be here. They have their board meeting tonight, is same night as ours. But as I said in the cover memo, the plan examines the terrain, the vegetation, and features on the Burnham Strip parcel, which you all know is owned by the district. And the management plan that they produced provides recommendations for future management, taking into consideration basically trying to rehabilitate it back to its natural state. They've broken it down into 4 separate projects, and they've given us some cost range estimates. Those are general, and they're based on the objectives to reestablish native plant communities, improve and maintain drainage and riparian habitat, and to rehabilitate the parking lot. So that's what is before you. I had a conversation with Joe Essel this morning and Kellex. Joe's the one that prepared the plan, and he said, he added, because I asked him, I said, is there any information I could pass on to the board? And he said, let them know that this plan is just a first step intended to provide a general description of the site and to outline the project areas and general actions the RCD believes would provide the most cost-effective benefit to the environment. The next step would be to sit down with you and the board to identify which project areas and restoration options should be further developed to produce prescriptive restoration actions and implementation cost estimates. So after speaking with him and Kellex, we thought that, and if you notice, if you read the management plan, it indicates that in several places that they will need to sit down with the board and discuss some more details to, I guess, expand and, really decide what's going to happen here. And so they thought that it would probably be a great idea to appoint a committee that they could sit down and meet with, and then the committee can, and RCD can, they can make recommendations to the board. The committee can turn around it based upon all of the information, make some recommendations to all of this. They did indicate that what's going on out there right now really has no effect on the plan. They can move forward as soon as possible, and they would like to do that as soon as possible. So they said if we appoint a committee, they would like to go ahead and schedule the initial meeting, and then from there you guys can just take it from there, basically.
Well, this is, the question I have is why we need somebody from RCD here. This land is supposed to be community park, not not sure how I want to say this,
Open
native
space.
native habitat restoration demo project. And while I tentatively agree with the recommendations, which are primarily take out the bristly ox tongue, that's the bulk of the recommendation here, and the jabuti grass, which I think you took out most of it.
Well, actually, there's drainage suggestions as well.
Right, but what I want to see here in addition to this, not to replace this, but in addition to this, before the board makes any decisions, I want to see a proposal for how we make the land usable as an ad hoc community park. Think Marina Green in San Francisco.
Okay, well, I think that they prepared this on the basis of what they thought the board wanted.
But Kellex was really clear on this when she was here. You know, we made it clear to her that nothing that we would have RCD do can preclude using it as a park.
Right, well,
And she agreed to that, but there isn't even one sentence in here on that topic.
Okay.
I read the whole thing.
Jim?
Sorry.
I think it's an excellent look at the habitat issues and the options for improving drainage and a lot of other things on the property. It seems to me that the issue of the uses on the property is not something that's really within the RCD's, wheelhouse. That's not what they do. Whatever this body decides should go on the Burnham Strip, this is useful information for that no matter what. This is like a first look. But it also seems to me that specifically, if you had a subcommittee working with them, maybe you could come up with a pilot project that would, number one, show the community something happening, and start perhaps with a riparian enhancement site, because that's never going to be used for any kind of, more parkland area.
But that's also
So-
the most expensive of all of the various
Well,
suggestions.
maybe it doesn't all have to be done at once. I mean, that's the thing about habitat restoration, is you can often do, you can start the process. It takes time. It's never gonna happen overnight, but at least something, I'm not saying that's the solution, but I'm saying that maybe we look at this and figure out a way that, there's a lot of good stuff in here that could be
Yeah.
useful. The drainage stuff, I mean, no matter what goes on there, you're gonna have to fix the drainage. So it seems as if, or to make it all work, you're gonna have to pay attention to the drainage issues on this site.
Well, I
I'm-
kind of think that the first thing we should do is look at getting the ukes out of the riparian area, because they suck up a huge amount of water, and that's, if we get rid of the ukes, that's gonna totally change the rest of the characteristics there.
Okay, I mean, but it seems we have experts here on some of these issues, and that maybe we think about what would be step one to do some management of the Burnham Strip, and start talking to them about that and bring it back to the board and say, what do you think? Is this a reasonable, or bring back a couple of options? I mean, the alternative is not to do anything and wait for, and I think actually this is something that should happen, is some kind of planning process for the whole Burnham Strip.
Well,
But that's not gonna happen overnight, and we have something really good right here that I feel very confident there's a way to move forward with a couple of the proposals in here that wouldn't be too expensive and that wouldn't preclude other uses on the Burnham Strip. That's what I'm saying.
so which things specifically do you think we should start out doing?
I don't know. That's why I'd like to sit down with them, talk to them, ask them some questions, look at the two things that occur to me are riparian improvements, and your point about the eucalyptus is a good one, and also some of the drainage things. And they indicated that maybe Caltrans would be willing to help support some of the drainage issues, changes. So without, this isn't enough for me to sit down and say, okay, let's do this first. But I think if we sat down with them, really focused, using this as a basis to identify a first couple projects, brought them back to the board and really explained them, then we could give them some good feedback and we could maybe start something. That's what I think.
And I think Barbara brings up a good point, is that, it really is not within the scope of the RCD to decide, what park, facilities that the board may want to consider on there. They can work with you around that, or with that, with the master plan, or as Barbara said, possibly going forward with some of the restoration projects while we're putting together the rest of the plan.
I think we should ask the RCD to do a couple of things. One, add the Impink property into this.
Oh,
They
yeah.
did take that into
I
consideration.
forgot about that
Yeah,
part.
they did. They said it's very similar to that, one of the sections that they included, and they didn't think it was that much
It-
different.
It's gonna
Yeah.
be
Right.
a little different because it's had soil illegally dumped there and it's actually a foot higher than the rest of our property.
Or 5 feet. in
I did
places.
mention that to them, and that's the response that I got, so.
Yeah, I would think that it would be very like the, I'm gonna call it the west end.
The west.
Rather than the north end. And the other is, well, first, could you pull this figure 2 out of the PDF and print it on 11 by 17?
Bigger
So
paper,
it might be
sure.
readable?
No, just ask them to send you the original file so it has decent resolution, because the PDF probably has really crappy resolution, it's not
Are
gonna
you
look good if you
asking
blow it up.
for this right now?
Not right now,
Okay,
no.
okay.
But
Which page is that?
that's page 4,
Okay.
figure 2.
14 there, maybe.
And if you look at this map, obviously, we'll have a 2-track process that has to be done simultaneously and mesh. We can plan out there, but there are significant restraints. And like the willow area, which covers, that's third of it, it's riparian. Then there's 2 riparian corridors that will have setbacks.
2 riparian corridors?
Yeah, the ditches.
The ditch in front of the pump station has, and the report actually says this, it has no riparian vegetation.
No, but it has water running in it.
That doesn't make it riparian.
It makes it wetlands.
No.
You
It
want
has-
to talk to the Corps of Engineers about this sometime. And not only that, but if you look at the west end, there's a significant area in blue that is labeled potential wetland. If that is jurisdictional wetland, we can do virtually nothing with it.
Yeah,
And so how can we plan until we know where our footprint can land?
good question. Yeah. Chuck actually mentioned that. in the
Yeah.
Well,
conversation.
let's remember, if we do any project here, we will have to do a real sequence
Yeah.
on this. And because Jonathan and I both picked up on that.
Well, I have photos from either 95 or 97, one of those major storm years when there was significant flooding of this property, and my recollection is the flooding is almost completely on Caltrans part, not on our part.
Yeah, that one surprised me because anecdotally, I don't remember that being a wetland.
No,
And even
no.
just looking at the slope, it doesn't even
No,
seem
I didn't
like,
either, but
I didn't wanna, they put together.
But your recollection and a new study will give us something to work on.
I can try and find photos.
But I think going back to Barbara's point, there's 4 projects here. Certainly project 1, which is repopulating native plants or select non-native plants. Maybe we're not looking at that right now. Projects 2 and 3 would possibly be done anyway, whether you turn this into marina greens or not. You're not gonna turn the wetlands or whatever into marina greens. And project 4 is a whole nother, which is the tilling up the parking lot and doing something with that. That's a whole nother project. So, that's got coastal commission things, it's got access issues, all that kind of stuff. So certainly 2 and 3 might be a starting point for the committee to talk with the RCD about, because I don't know what we can do there.
Where are these numbered with the numbers you're using?
The project numbers, so.
The page?
Page 13.
Page 13 of the report, page 7 agenda.
Page 17 is the riparian, page 17 is the riparian area one.
But the projects themselves, that are numbered 1 through 4, start on page 13 of the report, 23 of our agenda packet.
Okay, I need more information about enhancing native plant populations, because if that ends up precluding using it as an ad hoc park, then we need a different
Well,
plan.
Leonard, that's why I said, don't even look at project one at this point in time, because if you wanna do Marina Green, that's not compatible. So let's focus now on 2 and 3.
Let's-
You know, one's not compatible, and project 4 is a bigger fish to fry. If we wanna get moving on something, there's that. If you look at their high and low number, that's $100,000 to $200,000 project. You know, we get about $600,000 a year in property tax, so while that's a bigger project, that's what we became the Parks District for, and that's why we have property tax, so.
Well, I don't know, looking at all of this, I don't really see anything here that moves us forward in the direction of making it usable as a park. I'm just really disappointed in that.
Well, what would you like to see? Let's talk about that then, because I think, like Delia said, it's not in the RCD's wheelhouse. What would you, I mean, the simplistic.
How do we fix the surface so that you can actually walk on it without taking your life in your hands? You know, between all the sharp weeds, and that's all that grows there right now, is sharp weeds and gopher holes, and the surface has been badly damaged by many years of illegal disking and then the non-native invasives, and so the surface needs to be fixed by smoothing it out and getting rid of the non-native invasives, particularly the prickly oxtongue that's mentioned repeatedly in this report. But very specifically, we need something planted there that you can actually walk on comfortably and throw a blanket down and have a picnic.
Well, I'll put a word to that, grass. I mean, and
Which
maybe
will
that's
require
what,
irrigation.
well, and that's.
And we may be able to do wells, and I heard years ago that our staff was looking into that, but I've never heard a report on it.
Well, let me ask, before we get to the wells and the irrigation, and Barbara, we have talked about this at length way back. Is your board interested in turning that into a true, what I'll call a park, like Marina Greens, a grass park? Is your board interested in that? Because if you're in, you know, for that section, obviously, we're not gonna turn the whole Burnham Strip into it, but for some section of it, is your board interested in turning that into a grass parkland?
Some section of it, yes.
Some section.
Yes, some
think
section of it,
that-
yes.
Okay,
You know, for the first cut, we can look at the section between drainage ditch 1 and drainage ditch 2, which is the obvious place.
right, so, but anyway, broadly, you're interested in having some park there for some section, so then what we'll need to do is look into, are you interested in it if we've gotta bring in municipal water, you know, Coastside County Water District water?
I'm still interested. I've been warned over the years that there would be a community backlash if we used potable water for that. But I think people want parkland, and you know, we might test
Well, why don't-
test the community opinion, but we also need to look into wells, because MPINK was pressing ahead trying to build a house. He drilled 3 test wells, and he wouldn't have kept going on that if he didn't have success on one of the wells.
So why don't, moving forward then, you're interested in some parkland there, why don't we investigate well water there as well as municipal water? If nothing else, we get a cost, a price, and if we can, you know, I've got landscape architects I work with down south, I can get an idea of how much, if we turn 2 acres into grass, you know, what kind of water, you know, amount of water that would take. And that'll move us forward just for some section, and then your board can expand it or shrink it, depending on what we look at.
Maybe we could suck water out of the wet weather project.
Well, don't laugh too hard, because
I will, actually, but
before you jumped in, I was gonna ask, what does a very small scalper plant cost?
we've looked at that, and you can't do it cost effectively. It's about, Barb.
Sure, good.
I just wonder about, it seems to me there should be a plan for this. I can envision a grassy common area that would be, you know, suitable for frisbee and picnics and so forth, and then maybe some habitat restoration with some nice trails through it and a few picnic tables there, you know, but I'm not an expert on all this, and it seems as if the RCD's expertise is in drainage and habitat restoration and, you know, working for solutions with property owners, and they've come up with some solutions for some issues here, but they're not park designers. And I guess we could go ahead and start looking at just putting in, and if that's what people want to do, I guess that would be fine, but it seems as if this is such a treasure that it deserves a little more expertise and attention to look at what it is the community wants there and how it should be laid out. And I think the RCD could help us to figure out which areas are more suitable for what, but I don't know, at this point, I feel as if just trying to throw in some lawn somewhere
How
is.
about a committee of you and me?
Uh-huh. Well, I think maybe we need to think about getting park design experts
Well,
involved.
I've
I don't want to design a park.
Okay, I've been pushing to do something with the property since we've had Parks Authority, which is, in 10 days from now, it'll be 3 years that we've had Parks Authority, and let's see, what have we done with it? Nothing.
Well, a
and
lot of
nothing.
citizens went to
And
a lot
so-
of meetings.
So I've been pushing to do something there, and I'm being told, no, we have to wait for the master plan, and then I said, okay, let's do the master plan, no, we need to wait for the RCD. Now, you're saying we should do the master plan, it's like,
Well,
No,
I don't know,
this is
I haven't
the
been involved
donkey
in that,
starved to
but
death
the
between two bales
RCD
a
had this
day.
done 4 months ago also, and it couldn't get on the agenda, right?
But I think so.
I wanna back off and I wanna follow up on what you said, because I like it better, number one, I think it's a good idea, number two, it takes a workload off of us. So, somewhere between eyeballing it and saying we need a park and this grandiose master plan that we got prices for of $225,000, I think what this board needs to do, and I strongly recommend, is to go hire a landscape architect to look at this parcel, not look at all of El Granada for this time being. Look at this parcel that we own now with input from yourselves, the broader board, or a two-member committee, and say, yes, we want some grass area here, we want some wetlands riparian stuff here, we want this, and develop a plan. And this isn't a grandiose thing, this is a guy looking at a 6-acre parcel, I wrote that generically, it's a 6-acre parcel, and saying, yes, you could do this, this, and this, drafting something together. You know, and I know people down south, and maybe the people down south know people up here that they
Well-
could point in the direction, or maybe you know
When I was
people,
on the
Barbara.
Parks
Yeah.
Committee, we looked at someone to do the outreach and make a plan for all the medians. And the one that we selected seemed really good. I mean, all three proposals that came in were good. They came into the county. A subcommittee looked at them. We recommended this one, which was going to be a little over $100,000 to
Remember
do.
the name of the company?
Right, here's the proposal, Gates.
So
I
then
brought
do we
it
wanna
tonight.
get a proposal from them?
Maybe, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe you want to go out and get three, just to, because maybe you do, but I don't think it's going to be that expensive. This is a big area, and this included, I think you do need to have community outreach, and you need to have people who are used to bringing that in. And then, these people were hot to go. They were ready to start, and we couldn't, it's been a year, hasn't it, because of the county agreement? So.
Barbara, we just got the agreement.
I know, I'm so excited, I didn't even know that, it's just great news, it
So,
finally came
yeah.
back, but my point is, I understand it's frustrating, but it's not the fault of the consultants that it took, in either case, that it's been delayed, it's been this whole the county is what delayed it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice part about the Burnham Strip parcel is we own it. We
Right.
don't have to talk to anybody else, and I agree, I had forgotten you had 3 landscape architects or whatever, planners. I think we go back to those 3 and say, we're not gonna do the grandiose, let's look at this,
Or-
because this is a bird in our hand.
This is a separate thing.
Right.
Not
and
say we're not
here's-
gonna do that, say we also want you to bid in
And
this
maybe,
other smaller
and maybe
project.
the committee develops a scope of work,
I
to present to
cringe
these
when I
people.
hear the $100,000 price tag, though.
Well, that's why we're
That was-
backing off of that.
This was a much bigger project. I
Right.
think to do the plan for the Burnham Strip would be significantly less.
And that's why I think if we form this committee, you develop a scope of work, and let me know if I'm on the right track here, develop a scope of work, bring it to these guys, get prices, pick someone and get moving, because, you know, we have been here a long time. At least we've got some input from the board that we do want to park and we do want to do this. The RCD helped us focus on that. I think that's the way to go.
How do we proceed? The scope that we would present for proposals, are we going to have solicit as much possible public input on what they'd like to see on the strip before we do that? Which would feed
Well-
into the scope?
It would be part of the project, I
right.
think. But I don't think it's gonna require, this required a whole lot, because it was medians and parks and trails, and went through the whole community, and it was lots of different properties. This is one really obvious property.
Yeah, well, yeah, it should be much simpler,
Yeah.
because it's not 17 different pieces or whatever.
You've got previous
Yeah.
work
And
that's
we
been
give
done
them-
here.
I think when we solicit for proposals, we give everybody this document, which is both presents both constraints and possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
So does your board want to appoint a committee to kind of push this forward?
I'd be happy to work on that.
Well, we've got one.
I already made the suggestion that it be the
Okay.
two of us.
Do you want to
Okay.
fight for those positions?
And then, no, that's fine. Do you want to have any input
Well,
for,
there's gonna be another
do you have any
committee
comment?
appointment.
Do you have any comment at
in
all?
Another item here soon.
No, thank you.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
And then, would the scope come back at our next board meeting? And then we'd go out to bid?
I guess it's as fast as you
Yeah.
guys can move, yeah.
Yeah, I think we can do it. Leonard?
This is gonna be a Burnham strip planning
Yes.
committee?
Right.
Yeah,
Do we have any idea of the cost?
yeah, okay.
You know, we have big differences in the costs here. So
That's
I'm
something
trying,
that
do we want
will-
to give
that
any, it's way too
the
far, way too
proposals will
early for
come
that.
back
Well, if
with
we do a
the-
scope and get it out there, we'll
It
get
really
some
just
proposals
depends,
back
yeah.
and we'll
Yeah.
take a
No,
look.
all-
I think we need to
thing.
leave behind that grandiose master plan, keep it focused on this, so, you know, if it sounds like your board's ready, if you'd like, someone like to make a motion to appoint Barbara and Leonard as ad hoc Burnham Strip Planning Parcel Committee.
I will do so. I'll make that motion.
Okay, right, okay.
Okay.
I second that. I get
You got a
it.
second?
Okay,
Leonard
okay,
seconded.
then a second. All in favor, say
Aye.
aye. Aye, anybody opposed?
Okay, so you guys will,
And
Okay.
one reason these were so expensive is they included taking it through CEQA.
Yeah.
So,
well, that
you
was
know,
that was a giant project, and I think,
Yeah.
It was a lot of trees.
I am
gotta
still
boil
in
all
favor
that.
of doing this, but we'll bring that back another meeting.
Were any of the three
maybe
companies
this
named,
will wet everyone's
Calendar?
whistle.
Named,
were any of the three
Calendar.
companies named Calendar?
No.
I don't think so, no.
No.
Because
We know.
Calendar is one of those companies that
Well,
you order a motorcycle and you get an interstate bus.
I can
Right, it's
distribute
more-
the proposals we
Right.
received if you'd like to see.
There were three companies that already had, I don't know what the term is, but contracts with the county
Yeah,
to do
correct,
projects,
right,
so that they didn't have to, you know, and I don't know, are there any constraints here in terms of that, or can we just go
We're
out
hiring.
to
No, no.
these?
I don't see one.
We can hire, no, we can hire, that's the situation, we can hire one
MIG was
contractor.
one of
We're
them.
gonna have
Remember,
them,
the
okay, we
county
hire-
is
Yeah,
on their end pulled out of this thing, so I think we're
There's no
controlling our own.
rules on us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but-
we're controlling our own destiny here, and that's why,
Yeah.
you know, your board.
One of the proposals came from MIG, which they actually did a proposal here to the board for something. I can't remember exactly what it was.
But again, I
Yeah.
want to leave that behind,
They
let's
could do
focus
whatever,
on this,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
then, like Barbara says, we can bring that broader picture back. I think this is a good starting point. If we can't do this, you know, we should be looking at the big
No.
picture. And
So you
Did
think?
you
I'd
wanna
also
ask-
like, could we also talk to the RCD, because I think they'd probably like some feedback.
Actually, what I'd like to suggest is that the committee get together with
Yeah,
the RCD,
okay.
at least to start, and that'll get a plan going.
And the other thing in here was talking to Caltrans about their possible help
You
with
can
some
ap-
of the drainage. Could we
Right,
also
that-
work with the RCD on that?
Well, the RCD's suggestion is that we authorize them.
Just authorize them to
that.
go
Right.
forward, yeah.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay.
Anybody that isn't me that wants to deal with Caltrans.
Um,
Okay, is that a
Okay.
motion?
Public comment?
No, we have
I
any,
think we
yeah,
had-
Fran, you want to comment? Okay, yeah, okay, so we did, thank you.
Hi, Fran Pollard, El Granada. Oh, God, I'm all over the place with it. I missed what you said You just got an agreement for what?
From the draft agreement came back from the county.
The medians.
For the medians.
Boulevard
Oh, for
median.
the
The use of the
medians?
median, so
Yay.
that's a separate
Right, the big one.
project, but it's not on the agenda
Oh, because I
tonight.
was gonna say, if we're never gonna get that agreement from them, then let's start working on the Burnham Strip. But, well, we can do both, I guess.
Yeah.
But I really would. I was thinking about this since I saw that in closed session you were discussing the fire department. And I read their report that they're gonna excavate a lot of dirt over there. And I was thinking that could be put on the illegal ad hoc parking lot and start, putting some dirt on there. Well, I guess you have to scrape it and
Well,
clean it up first.
But our resident archaeologist might have to explain that there's dirt, then there's dirt, then there's soil.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
There certainly is.
that's the same dirt that's on the Burnham Strip, where there is
It
dirt.
depends on how deep you're talking about.
Well, whatever they have, it would be a first layer, because you're gonna have to bring in soil you're gonna have to clean that parking lot up and then it was a suggestion, that's all. I'm just thinking,
That's all.
if they're right across the street, if they need to dump all that tons of dirt that they're gonna excavate, then why not just drive it across the street and put it over there?
Because we only want the topsoil.
Okay.
No, well,
Okay,
you
anyway.
could use a layer of dirt under the topsoil and then build it up from there.
Okay.
You
Well,
still
there's,
Okay.
can.
yeah,
Yeah,
and there's
this would be
project
fine.
and
Yeah,
CEQA
sure.
considerations here, I don't know what they're.
I know we could
Okay.
get some sand.
And the fire district should love that idea because it'd save them a lot of money
Yeah,
to only have to take it across the street.
Right.
I was surprised in this report, pleasantly surprised, I could say, that they recommended tilling the ad hoc parking lot, that gravelled area, rather than removing, scraping it all off and getting rid of it, and then tilling it and then putting soil on. So, yeah, that's a good idea that we asked.
yeah, because then
the
you'd have to
fire
bring in
district,
topsoil
yeah.
on top of that, but at least it'd be a layer of dirt, I think, and start building it up a little bit. And yes, I just hope, I'd like to remind everybody, had I not, and several people in the community, we did discuss what we wanted to do there years ago, and so that isn't just my thing.
No, of
That's-
course not.
So, if we hadn't fought the county on every parcel over there, that would be solid houses now. So to say that we can't even put a park in now because we've got to have native plants, I don't go for that.
Nobody said that.
Well, that's what I'm hoping, that doesn't happen. I can see, in some sections and some parts. By the way, the county today over in Quarry Park, they say we can't touch the willows over here or anything where the riparian, they just chopped all those willow trees that are in Quarry Park. They cut a lot of branches. They're all laying out there on the park now.
Where were the willows?
The willow trees that are in the where the
Well, it's
playground is.
What?
The children's playground.
Okay.
Willows up front there, close to Columbus?
Yeah, there's
Behind
the willow
behind the
trees.
garden? Behind the,
No, where the playground, the
So
So you're
children's
saying close to
playground.
Columbus?
So to say that, we can't even touch any of that, I don't think that goes, because they just cut those trees really back. They're
think those
more
are
on the
acacias.
ground than there is on the trees anymore. So I think that can be done too. They need to be trimmed or something. But, I agree with the water, the stormwater runoff, that should be taken care of in the Burnham Strip. But I just hope that there's enough, that we can do enough to make a nice park and have picnic tables and maybe barbecues and things that people like to do. And it has to pretty much be a passive park, I think. You can't have ball fields or anything like that because they could go out on the highway and cause an accident. So that's really got to be taken into consideration.
So something Fran just said, it occurs to me, I thought of this before. build a really big underground tank and store the stormwater runoff. And of course, considering what we spent on the wet weather overflow project, I don't know if this is viable, but,
It's not.
um,
It's why they have 90-day storage, when they do recycled water. It's a gigantic reservoir to try and, even out the, I don't know, how long you all go without rain up here, a long time. So we're gonna need some kind of water, whether it be well water or.
what, just because we went for 5 years without rain?
Right, exactly. That's a big reservoir.
Well, that's one of the
Okay.
advantages of native plant restoration is they don't need to be irrigated.
Right.
Once they're going, they survive.
And I think that's something that the
Okay. Thank you,
committee
Fran.
can look at of how big a lawn area we need versus how much native restoration, repairing, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a good plan going forward, and we'll get something done.
Okay. Well, thank you for suggesting with the committee. That's actually, that's a lot.
I think I'm
Volunteering.
taking credit for somebody that suggested.
Anyone, that's fine. No, we're moving ahead. Okay, thanks. Okay, so are we done with item 1 or 2?
Anybody else?
Did the board want to go ahead and authorize RCD to pursue talking with the Caltrans?
Yes.
Sure.
Any motion on that?
The motion.
Yeah.
Can I ask one question?
From the microphone?
Please.
Shouldn't we have them come to one of our
No, they
meetings? You say
were.
this is their regular meeting night too?
Yes.
No, right.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, but we need to have them come here and talk.
So I hope we can work it out and maybe have a special meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So are we ready for item 2?
Well, we didn't get through.
Oh, hey, wait, one more.
So
What
we
else?
need a motion. I
Well,
move.
do we need a motion?
Yes.
For Caltrans?
I move that we communicate to the RCD that we would like them to go ahead and start to contact Caltrans and talk about cooperative action on the Burnham Strip area.
Second?
Okay, moved and seconded.
Everyone discuss?
I'm sorry, Jim, I've been running
No.
our meetings down south, now I'm doing it here.
No, that's okay, that's fine, no,
I've been
now we want to,
trained, too.
in discussion, okay. Just give it, no, so all in favor, say aye?
Aye.
Aye, okay,
Aye.
so, no worries. So it's fine, good, very good, so we're moving ahead on that, so we have both affirmative. Okay, so now we're ready for item 2, which is consideration of appointing PAC Oversight Committee.
Okay. The Granada Community Services District basically created a park committee, and they had appointed members. There are 7 regular members, 1 non-voting voting member, and they served a 2-year term. There are quite a few of them who want to continue, but we also have a few vacancies. One because of Barbara Dye, who was previously on the park committee, is now a board member, and then we have 2 other members who've left or resigned, I guess, their seats, so we have 3 openings, and I have an ad in the paper that went into the review. We have notices up at the post office and on our website. Hopefully we can get people interested to want to be on the committee. So what this item is for is essentially to appoint a committee that will interview the applicants, as opposed to having the whole board do it, which is how we did it the first time when the committee was created. And then that way, the committee can come back and make recommendations for appointment.
Do you have an idea for time frame for how soon?
Well, we're just kind of waiting to see how many people apply. We have to have enough, I'm hoping for at least 3.
I need you to
move forward.
clarify something.
Yes.
Let's assume that there's 5 applicants. I want all of the existing members to have to compete again for the
That's fine,
seats, no automatic reappointments.
that's fine. I think it's
Do-
set up
do-
openly, but I think it would be discouraging to the ones that want to be on there to not be reappointed. They've put in
Right.
a lot of work and effort. and
They
I
have.
think-
Do we have a policy that governs that? Julia?
Yeah, but it's
Do you
kind of
remember what
vague.
it's-
I don't
it's
think
vague?
we have any real details other than the two-year
It-
term
yeah, it's a
thing and
two-year
how they're
term, that's
appointed.
all it
Yeah,
says.
Well,
yeah.
And Barbara's been on the committee, do you have any thoughts on how well the committees work?
Well, I know a lot of people have been very frustrated in the last 6 months because due to the absence of the county agreement, nothing's happened. A couple people have left the committee because of that. They said there's no
Well,
point to it.
Actually, Jeanette left, she said, because she was, had too much personal stuff going on, and I know Owen.
Well, that's
felt
not what
as
she
well.
told me.
Yeah, well,
But anyway.
Owen's
um,
wife had a baby, and that's why he dropped
Yeah,
out.
no, it's fine, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying it is true that for the
It is
last
fine.
period of the committee, I think everyone's been frustrated, whether they've left or not,
Mhm.
because there's been, so can I appropriately ask the question? The agreement's come back, but it's not ready to be finalized, is that true?
Correct.
What does that mean?
So that
The
means
medians agreement.
Yeah,
It
what
has
does
to be
that mean?
it's gotta
not
go
ready to
back
be
now?
finalized?
It's gotta be revised and go back to the
Well, so
county?
they have sent comments on our comments, and in some places it'll say, we need an explanation of what's the purpose of this, why did you ask for that? Some places they just say, we're sticking with ours. We're going through it right now, actually, and reviewing it to see,
Do you have an initial sense of whether there's stuff in there that it's going to be difficult to resolve? Because if it is true that there's stuff in there that's going to take another 6 months to resolve,
well,
I would recommend holding off on getting a committee that can't, though we could probably use them to advise on the Burnham
Well,
Strip
Well, that's what I was gonna
project.
say, we've got
Yeah.
other projects.
There's other things they can.
we're gonna try, I think, Chuck, to avoid another 6 months of delay. In other words, I think that we may be looking at it, finding a way to accept as many things as we can. But the frustrating thing was, we never even got to have discussions. If we could have just had a conference call, which I kept proposing, and go through these things one at a time, I think we would have taken care of that, one or two calls. But that never happened.
Well, I think the park committee president, or chair, actually, he actually moved this forward by contacting, Supervisor
Supervisor.
Oh,
Forsley.
Pat.
Good.
Yeah, because the
Good.
very next day,
I couldn't remember who contacted me.
yeah,
but
it was Pat Tierney, and the very next day, that agreement was here.
Yeah.
So, we thank him for that.
Yeah.
So then I guess my feeling is, yeah, let's go ahead and reappoint,
But to Leonard's point,
making people reapply. I think that is sort of standard practice.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I think I need to be explicit about why I want that. The board sort of got shanghaied when we did the original appointments, and the committee was totally dominated by active rec people that don't care at all about passive parks. They're completely focused on active rec, the majority of that committee. And that committee needs to be rebalanced.
I think that, I disagree with that.
Well, I know that a lot of people disagree with me, but I know that there are people in the background that agree with me on that.
so the process, what we're looking at, it seems like you want everyone to be up for reappointment, if you will. The process, how we usually handle this kind of stuff, is the board appoints a committee, the committee, there's 7 members?
Yes, it's voting.
7 members, so if we get 10 applications, the committee looks at the 10, makes a recommendation to this broader board, and that's how it goes. So it's almost
When does the first 2 years run out?
It just ran out, well, technically, it was October when we originally appointed all of the members, so it will be 2 years this coming month. But the term, the way we drew up the rules was that the term ended at the fiscal year end. So we're a little beyond that. But because we haven't had a lot of activity lately, that's why we waited. And it took me a while to get the ad in the paper.
and I just want to speak to Leonard's point, which is, I agree that the committee was heavily weighted with people who were in favor of one particular project, which is the next item on the agenda. But those people also did care about the medians and the passive recreation issues too. They were looking for a place to have that particular project implemented. but they also cared about the community as a whole. So I hear your point, and there's some validity to it, but it wasn't entirely, didn't entirely slant the deliberations of the committee, I don't think.
Okay, well, since half of the committee meetings never got televised, it's kind of hard to have enough visibility there, and I would like this board to direct staff that under no conditions is there to be a committee meeting that isn't televised.
Okay? The full committee?
Yeah, well, we make our
Nothing to do with it.
that. I mean, there are a couple different reasons why it hasn't happened, but. it
Half
wasn't
of the
intentional.
committee meetings were not televised. I do know about that.
So
Okay.
does anyone want to volunteer for this appointment committee?
I will.
Anyone want to do it enthusiastically?
Fine, that's good.
All right,
Okay.
yay, I'm
There
finished.
you go.
Well, I'd be interested depending on other directors. if
Well,
they're
I'm
up.
traveling a lot. That's my situation. I'm gonna be doing a lot. I'm not gonna be around very much. If you're looking for October, I'm not around at all in October. So my schedule's not gonna really allow me to do much interviewing. So that's why I asked for the time frame.
It could be any time within the next couple months.
Yeah.
We only have one interested person at this time that I'm aware of, an applicant, so until we do a little bit more advertising.
Well,
Are we set up to
Mixed feelings about
make
doing
all
it,
the
because I
current
work
members
really closely with these
reapply?
people.
I understand
and
that.
I-
Right.
No, but.
So I feel-
if he wants
I feel a
to,
little
it can
awkward.
be
I'm just sitting there.
Making a
Sure.
recommendation.
But I would
That's
physically
understand.
make them
Okay.
apply.
So-
Like filling out an application.
Well, what I'm asking is, this committee that so far has one person, are we going to interview the existing board members?
That's a good question.
Committee members.
can
Committee
decide
members, I
whether
mean-
to
You'll make that
decide
decision.
how
Yeah.
to do that, yeah.
Oh, well, this hand votes this way.
Since it was 2 years ago, I think it'd be useful to re-interview.
I can put together a meeting with the committee and we can go over the applications that I saved everything and who's on the committee.
I guess I would caution your board or your committee to be careful about doing re-interviewing and things like that. We're trying to keep people on the committee, and I want people to, feel like they're being
What do you mean?
reviewed, if you will.
We're trying to keep people on.
Yeah.
Well, I have boards that we have trouble getting 5 people on.
Yeah,
It doesn't sound like
understood.
people are beating down the door on this one, so.
Well,
But I'd just be sensitive to that.
What I heard a few months ago was not in a whole lot of conflict with what we've heard tonight, that some committee members were discouraged because they didn't see anything happening.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But
So-
now there's some real tasks specifically.
They're still
I mean,
very energetic.
even if we bring in a consultant for the Burnham Strip, there's gonna need to be community outreach, and these folks could be really important in
Yeah.
that. So, that'll reinvigorate it.
Yeah, well, and they're gonna get together next week and have some meetings, as far as I know, and talk about some other projects as well.
So, there were 2 conversations going on here, but I think I heard Barbara say that she's uncomfortable having been on the committee and being close to the people.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, I would be fine with another director doing it, because I think that Matthew and I are gonna agree a lot on it, but I'm certainly willing to do it.
So, and you're here. Right, you're
All right.
traveling.
Okay.
Okay,
When I'm not being dragged off to China for
well,
2
there,
weeks.
well, understood, so, okay, so.
I move we
think now-
appoint a subcommittee of Leonard and Matthew to.
Okay.
Well, if I have to rearrange my life to do it, I'm not doing it either.
You've already volunteered to.
There you go.
Yeah.
You realize that it's a
No.
standing committee?
It's the same, sure. But you could
Yes,
be-
the standing committee,
Two-
yes.
So standing committees have to have noticed regular meetings.
Oh.
Maybe it is gonna be.
Why don't we just appoint an ad hoc committee each time we need it?
Yeah, Jonathan
Okay.
just said an ad hoc.
Okay, there we go.
So it's not permanent
Okay.
Yeah,
indentured
okay,
servitude.
so, yeah.
Yeah, so, the committee will probably meet once or twice, and then when the board appoints the advisory committee members, then the ad hoc committee is
Right.
dissolved.
So this
until-
committee is making recommendations to the full board, is that right?
Right.
Correct.
And I just heard Chuck caution against discouraging people from being involved, but we do identify this committee in our parks ordinance. So it's an important committee, and our bylaws say that their terms are expiring. So I think there needs to be some equal treatment among everybody, including those who are new or re-upping. So in other words, if you're going to interview some, I think you need to at least talk to.
Okay, so you're agreeing with me.
Completely disagreeing with me.
Yeah.
It's a disappointing day at GCSD. I'll tuck my tail between my legs and
It
go.
won't happen again, I promise.
Well, the existing members, that's going to be an easy interview. I'll have one question. Are you willing to keep doing this?
There you go.
I'll have more questions than that.
So Barbara, did you make a motion?
I did make a motion to
Okay,
appoint
do you have a
Leonard
second?
and Matthew as subcommittee
You want a
to
second?
make a recommendation for members of the park committee.
Okay, do we have a second?
All right, I'll second it.
It's okay. Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, do you want, okay, so do you want, no, Fran, we'll get you, okay, fine. Okay, well, thank you for doing that. That moves it ahead a lot.
Here we have a good font size.
I'd like to see more gender balance on the committee too.
There you go. So go to item 3.
Which, two women or
Which
three
way?
on
There were
the
two.
last committee?
Too.
Just you and Jeanette?
Okay. So we have item 3 then?
So let's encourage some women to attend,
Yes.
to apply.
Okay.
All right, so your job is to recruit
Okay,
applicants.
I'll do what I can.
There you go. So we have item 3 here, which is consideration of letter support for a bike pump track to San Mateo County Parks.
Okay, this item was put on the agenda at the request of our board president, at the request of our PAC chair, Pat Turney. They're looking for a letter from the district to the county supporting the county inclusion of a bicycle pump track in the Quarry Park Master Plan. And I just want to mention that I found out that Mr. Jonathan, and I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, does anybody know? Gervais?
Gervais.
Okay. He actually doesn't take office until October 6th,
No.
which I didn't realize when I wrote this, so we could say, maybe at least change that to, or acting director or something like that. But I drew up this draft letter, certainly, I'd like to hear any comments, changes, recommendations before it goes out.
How many parks directors have they had since Dave Holland?
I couldn't tell you.
All right.
Yeah, no wonder I can't keep track. So, this doesn't give any hint as to where they're considering, so I can't support this
I'm
without
not
knowing
really
where.
sure where.
No,
I
it's-
don't know.
but also we had questions about making it for, Pat Tierney had requested it to be for youth. Children,
He requested-
to be for children, not for adults. That was his request when he emailed me about
Right,
this.
actually, my original letter had youth all over it.
Well, right.
Right.
So what
I
happened in
didn't
the
realize they
original
got it all
letter,
taken out.
this may be my fault, but,
Okay, there you go.
I
Okay.
didn't know what the intent was.
There you
What I
go.
didn't want to
Okay.
do is have them approve a pump track only for school-aged children, have whatever, teenagers or 20-somethings go ride on it and there be an issue. Now, it may be
How would you
that,
control it? How would anybody control that?
I know, well, that's why I don't want to pitch it as something that later on doesn't become that, and there's some 55-year-old pumping around in the pump track, and someone complains. So I tried to make it more age neutral, but that's, if they really are targeting school-age kids,
Right.
that's what they're targeting. I don't know that, so.
Right.
Delia, you seem to think that's what they're targeting.
Well, the original, I don't know who they're.
The letter wasn't quite specifically to that, it just added a line at the
It-
bottom saying
yes.
this will give school-age kids a place to go
Right.
ride
and-
pump track bikes,
Yeah,
so.
so I can add those sentences back in if that's preferred.
I have major issues with this letter, so.
Okay, it's good.
I've been going to all the Quarry Park meetings, and the last one, we talked about the area, this, essentially, this area right here, which is part of Quarry Park, believe it or not, and it could be accessed here, right here, and it's part of the planning effort. That's long, just, yeah, it comes, Quarry Park is now gonna come all the way over to here.
Apparently, the county,
They're calling all of this Quarry Park down to here, and up, way up to the top of Granada Boulevard. So Quarry Park is now, according to the county, much, much bigger than our traditional idea of Quarry Park.
When did that happen? The meeting I went to, they had a specific division between Mirada Surf, east and west, and Quarry Park. And they were talking about two master plans.
No, they're doing it all in the master plan right now, at least the meetings I've been going to.
Hmm.
So I, having sat through all these meetings, I sympathize with the desire for the pump track. They want a small footprint, and it does sound as if it's a pretty good activity for teenagers and so forth, kids and their parents and so forth. If there's any interest in doing this, I have a rewrite of this letter that takes it down a couple notches, so.
First of all, does the board support?
I know, so
Okay, yeah.
before I even go there, I mean, mine says is to advise you of the district's support for the consideration of a pump track, and it goes along those lines, and it takes out entirely the last sentence that says, however, Quarry Park provides an excellent location, just because we don't know that, we're not in a position to speak to that.
well, this local board is certainly in a much better position to evaluate locations than anyone who works for the county. And I won't support any letter where it doesn't, the specific location isn't identified for us to evaluate. The location has to be proposed in advance, and this board has to look at it and say, is that an appropriate location in this community?
But what they're asking for is something that causes the Quarry Park process to add additional weight to including this somewhere. And I don't support it up at the traditional Quarry Park. But I think there might be another spot for it, and I think there's a need for it, so, I don't know. Maybe we don't do the letter. That's just
Or
my.
what if it says, if there is an appropriate spot found, we
Well,
would
that's,
support
yeah, I
it?
got more rewrite in here that makes it much vaguer, but. Do people want to even send any letter?
Well, the question would be, he had requested, we had comments from Pat and also from Dale Ross. Had written a letter of support for the kids, for a kids pump track.
Is there a way that a letter could say we conditionally support it depending on the specific location?
All right, well, I took out the last sentence of the first paragraph, just crossed it out. And changed the inclusion in the first sentence to say consideration. And then the last one, I changed it to say, it is well known that the coastside lacks active recreational park facilities, and having a bike pump track somewhere on the larger Quarry Park property could provide a much-needed low-cost and low-impact recreation that would greatly benefit cyclists of all ages, making it much.
Can we get copies of that distributed, if you want it considered by the board right now?
I don't feel strongly about it, but I was trying to you know, I do value the sincere efforts of these folks to make this happen. They have worked really hard, and I do feel as if they've made a case that it'd be a valuable thing, but.
Oh, I certainly think we should have it somewhere. I just want to make sure it's in a reasonable place, because.
Can you make copies of this handwritten little change, and maybe we could wordsmith it a little more, because I just did that completely?
So
Because
you're going for general support depending on location?
Many of the
Depending on location.
proponents don't care where it is, they just want it done regardless of the impact for the particular location. You know, a lot of them want it out right here next to the ad hoc parking lot or something, or in front of the fire station, and I don't think you could get more than one vote on this board for that. So, you know, we need to know specifically where it might go before we throw this board's support behind it. And so if we can somehow put that thought into the letter, then I might be okay with the letter.
Do you want to comment, Fran? Yeah, Fran wants to comment.
Oh, we can support the concept
Okay, sure.
without,
That's what I was trying to do.
Okay,
without
yeah.
saying
Okay, so here's our neighbor.
Even where we think it ought to go.
Here's a neighbor, the person who knows Quarry Park best, it's great. Okay, anyway.
What was that?
The person who knows Quarry Park best is right here, so that's great. Okay, thank you.
All right, Fran Pollard, Granada.
In fact, for everybody's background, Quarry Park wouldn't be publicly owned if it wasn't for the efforts of Fran and her husband.
Right, it goes way back. Over 40 years we fought for that. Thank you. Yeah, let's see. Oh, okay, I've been to the master plan meetings that they've held here. And the one thing I kept saying to them, let's not put everything in Quarry Park.
Yeah.
Everybody's got some crazy thing they want to do, and it's all got to go in Quarry Park. And we need to start spreading things around. And so that's another reason I'd like to see the Burnham Strip done, but not for anything like that. But, so I'm against it in Quarry Park, unless it's, what I'm against is, we're getting a lot of traffic now coming through. If you go on the website, the county's website, it's being advertised all over the place. Quarry Park is great for hiking and for this and for that, and people are making comments, and people are coming from all over the Bay Area now to Quarry Park. It was supposed to be our little community park, at least that lower part. So it's taking over, and he put in here the parking lot. Well, I'm wondering if it was just for the little kids, why do they need a parking lot? But, the presentation.
You need a dramatic pause there, because that's a key point.
The presentation, when they first proposed it, the guys that wanted this, was for fathers and sons to ride their bikes and to do this. I don't think you're going to let little kids go there by themselves. Well, I don't know what age group you're talking about. When you say little kids, you're thinking of what, 4, 5, 6-year-olds? Or are you talking about school age, like all the kids from El Granada School? They could just go. So I think
I got the impression before that it was probably something like, 4 to 6 up through early teens or so.
Yeah, and it'll probably be. And you're not going to be able to stop anybody from coming there. That's why, if that's the only area that has a thing like that, they're going to be coming from all over, from the whole coast and probably the whole Bay Area when they find out, because it's advertised. And so I'd really like to get the county to quit advertising that all the time.
I have a question for you. I don't get over at Quarry Park much, but it seems to me that often the parking lot's completely full.
It is. It's more and more. That's what I'm saying. And on the weekends, they'll have parties there, and so the parking's all around our residences now, so. And the traffic, everybody comes in and out, that street, Santa Maria. So they really the county needs to find another way in and out of Quarry Park, and then maybe it wouldn't be so bad if they did it. I'm thinking over at the Hall route, where that used to be the Hall route. That might be a good place for bicyclists to go up and down. Now, where is that?
Well, the other,
You can't even see it on here, but I guess it's right here.
Yeah,
isn't it?
right.
yeah.
It's completely covered up by the trees.
Yeah, well, see, in that area, up in the trees, they could,
Turnout here.
that might be a good place to
Where
have
that
it.
gate is on the side of one.
They could actually, I scoped this out before in terms of what to do about Surfers Beach parking. And with very little effort, you could have a lot of parking space down here.
Yep,
So, and there is the turnout, and this part is flat, it's level with the highway for, there's the Hall Road there. So this part here is sort of flat.
mhm.
And this part I don't remember. But there's the Hall Road there. And so I don't even, you can't see Quarry Park, it's completely covered up by the trees too.
Yeah.
But Quarry Park, I guess, would be here, what we think of as Quarry Park.
No, it's that open space.
Oh, yeah, okay, so there's,
The new part, actually, what's up ahead?
all right, so here's the
Yeah.
5-acre flat part, right there, and there's Santa Maria that Fran is talking about as the only entrance right now.
Yeah, it doesn't belong. The other place that the committee, the Parks Committee talked about was the school district property.
Yeah, oh.
And there's adjacent neighbors that are in favor of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons to do it, but the school district was just.
Yeah, I meant to bring that up.
No, but it seemed like that had a lot going
Which
for
school
it.
district property? The 20-acre one or the 10-acre?
The lower one, yeah. They were saying, okay, you can put it up in the one above Clipper Ridge, I guess, and the people in Clipper Ridge, of course, didn't want that. But the lower one in the north or west part of El Granada, there was support from the neighbors for it. It could be set up so it was buffered, it could, but, you know, again, there's no property.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Have you given up on that? I think we need another chance of the right people and the right presentation.
Right? That was my impression, not for kids.
No, it was kids. I mean, it's both. I think there's parents and kids.
And that would spread out this, you know, it'd be in a different area and at the north end of town. So, because that was one of the things the committee was talking about. Why is everything down here at this south end of town? So that would be at the north end of town, and kids coming from Moss Beach or Montero would be easier for them to get at. So I hope we can make another presentation. The right people pitching it the right way at the right time, and see if the school district wouldn't be willing to lease it.
I don't think this is germane to the item, because we are mixing what
Right.
GCSD might do. This is a county project on county property. They're gonna make the decisions and spend the money. Are we going to encourage them to include a pump track is the question.
I'm comfortable
All right.
not sending a letter. so.
They're having another meeting this weekend, so maybe I'll talk to them about it and see, where are they proposing it? Or if they are, where exactly? And, you know, and give them some suggestions of some other places
Well,
and
these
see.
must have been the later meetings than I went to, because like I said, they had separated the two out, actual Quarry Park from the Murata Surf properties at the meetings that I went to. This is a master plan, is a pump, so at the recent meetings you went to, is pump track even come up?
Oh, yeah, the kids are there and they're pushing for that. But it's a
So-
Several
small
of your
group,
committee
it's not
We're urging
like
them
this
to
letter
consider-
says.
We're urging them to consider something they're already considering?
Huh?
Yes,
Say that
that
again?
is true.
That's a waste of time, huh?
Say that again.
He said, we're urging them to consider something they're already considering.
Yes, that's true.
Well, I don't, did they agree on it? I don't think they've
They didn't agree on
agreed.
anything, but
No.
you know, they had the dots and they had, pump
Yeah.
track was one of them, and people were putting up their dots and doing everything you do.
Right.
So we'll know more on Saturday, so maybe we just withdraw this.
Yeah.
Well, is there any support? Sounds like no.
All right, thank you.
From,
I guess Rebecca can get us, anyway. So we can find out, I mean, Pat had, the thing is, we're doing this for the request of Pat Tierney, had requested a letter for support from this. So we are kind of.
But there's not a lot of
Oh.
support, it's a certain group.
Well, that's a-
I'm not
that's the
against
case
helping,
for
I mean,
any
I would support this
proposal for any
too,
kind of park. It's certain
Right.
people.
depending upon where it is.
And these guys have been vocal about it and have been bugging us at least for years. And hey, if the county can build them one,
Yeah.
fine.
But I really think that this board needs to weigh in on the location, even if it's on county-owned land.
well, I
Because
guess
we
the
know the
question is,
community better.
Maybe there's not support for the letter that we put in the agenda package, but Barbara's
Barbara, sure.
version that has made it more qualified.
Yes.
And I actually added one more thing when I was sitting here. I added the words, where'd it go? After, in the second paragraph, adding, it is well known that the coastside lacks active recreational park facilities, and having a bike pump track somewhere on the larger Quarry Park property, comma, depending on the location, comma, could provide a much-needed low-cost and low-impact recreation. activity.
That works for me.
And,
That's making.
So is
me-
there support for the qualified letter, if you want,
Yeah,
if you
I
will?
would,
uh,
yeah, I like-
almost,
I mean,
I'd still like something stronger that, you know, I want this board to be able to weigh in before the final decision on the location is made.
Well, we could have
Well,
the
we always
lesson and
can.
say, we look forward to, I mean, there's nothing in there saying like, taking into account neighborhood compatibility or impact on residents, you know, like, you could write a whole different letter that would,
Well, all right, let's set that thought aside for 1 minute, and let me point out a change that we should make. In the second sentence, it says, "as a local parks agency." No, as the local parks agency.
Well, again, is there general support for a qualified letter?
I would support it, I mean, yes, I would
Yes.
support a qualified letter.
well, do you want me to work with Delia and maybe we'll fiddle
Yeah.
with this a little
Yeah.
more and send it out? We can do this, can we do
But,
this legally
what,
by email to come up with a
what-
final version?
Not
Two
really.
Not
directors
really?
with staff.
Okay.
Fine. And they need to, and they
Or
need to
one,
buy.
or one director with staff.
And the two. And there's one, I mean, there's one meeting this Saturday, it's also one meeting on Tuesday. When's the deadline for submitting? Probably
Well, I
Tuesday?
think if, you know, maybe
Yeah.
Barbara could work with Delia, because it
Right.
sounds like you all want this qualified thing. I was gonna make a joke at the lawyer's expense, but I won't. Say if we really want, I will.
There you go.
If we really want to qualify it, we send it to the lawyers. and
There you
the
go.
auditors.
Well, I think it's close, but you want something in there that says this body would like to review any location that's proposed for concerns about, well, no, because that's not really this group's job.
Mm.
But say something about, I would like to get something in there about consideration for impact on adjacent properties or.
Well,
And
the
it can
county's
be
already doing
45
that, that's why they're having all these
Right.
meetings.
Right.
I agree with you
Right.
there. I mean, I'm
Right.
comfortable with not sending it, but if we want to send something which would show some support for these people who really have been pestering us for a long time, we're trying to come up with something
Sure.
we could all be comfortable saying.
What if you take that last sentence and say, let us know when a location has been proposed and we'll provide our input, something like that.
I like that.
All right. I'm planning to
This
continue
doesn't
to
go.
attend the meeting.
So would you all be comfortable once again with Barbara working with Delia,
Right.
kind of based on this input, or do you not want to send a
No,
letter?
Yes, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay,
So
Good
would,
letter.
Actually, it would be me and Jim because he's going to sign it.
Well, yeah, well, you know, I'm
You'd have to-
nearby, so I can.
Yeah,
sign.
I'll.
But, yeah, but Delia
I'll
should
work with you
that,
and we'll
right?
just make sure, but you be a final check to say,
Yeah.
yes, this letter's okay.
And don't go out of town.
There you go.
so,
Please
So-
let us know when a location has been
so
proposed.
what's being suggested, that we authorize
A
Barbara to
committee
work
of
with
those
Delia
two.
and send the letter without it coming back to
Tuesday
the board?
it is.
Okay, you know, as long as there's, you know, heavy emphasis on it has to be the right location.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know,
so would the motion be to ask Barbara to work with Delia to draft a letter suitable to them for Jim's signature, and obviously he's signing it.
Based on the
so he's-
direction from this meeting.
Based on the direction
Yeah.
from the
Sure.
board,
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
probably.
if we're authorizing sending it without it coming back to the board, certainly.
So does someone want to make that?
I'll move what Chuck just said.
Second,
Okay.
and we are
Okay.
picking up my one-word change here.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Myself,
Okay,
Absolutely.
there we go. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you for moving ahead. Okay, so that's item 3.
Okay, oh, yeah.
So now we have item 4, which is consideration of District Sewer Authority Mid-Coastside Representatives Report. Sam, so, you wanna-
So we don't have
So-
draft minutes of
We only
that
have-
meeting? You know, we used to get draft minutes in the packet.
We have not much.
And I would request that staff try harder to get draft minutes in our packets rather than the agendas. Thanks. Those are non-minutes of a non-meeting.
Right.
Oh, okay, thanks.
I can't remember what happened with the minimum staffing level thing. I think that,
We passed it, we qualified. We did, we passed it. We appreciated the, yes.
at what level? But
The Beverly had made a recommendation, and we approved Beverly's recommendation to add one half-time for 6 months. And then go out and then add on,
All right, so adding the operator in training
Right.
and increasing the accounting tech from half-time to full-time.
and for 6 months, then you add more on next year because of the retirement. We can't approve that next year, but just to be aware of, because people are starting to retire.
So to add 1.5 full-time.
Right.
With the proviso that when this guy supposedly retires next year, will he be replaced, or she?
There are 2 people retiring, I think.
I think we can assume that Beverly's always gonna try for increasing headcount and
What was the discussion? Was the discussion that we're hiring an OIT as an operator in training?
if I recall, she talked about a second operator in training next year.
Correct, 2, yeah, yes.
Yeah, so next year
Good.
she'll come back, you know, certainly if anybody retires, but I think even without a retirement, she's still looking at that because something like half of the SAM employees have enough years of service in under the CalPERS pension plan that they could retire tomorrow. And so she's worried that half of them might just do that.
And just so you understand, people misunderstand the CalPERS retirement system generally, and I can't speak.
Age plus years of service, yeah, and half of them, the
No,
age plus
it's
years
not.
of service is there.
But no, it's age plus service, so they're on, I think they're on a 2% at 55 plan. It doesn't stop at 55. So it means if you retire at 55, you get 2% of your highest salary times years of service. If you retire at 63, you get 2.5% of your highest salary times years of service. So it's not fixed. The longer you work up to age 63, the bigger percentage you get. People misunderstand that all the time.
And I don't know about current stats, but 20 years ago, the average number of Social Security checks collected was 1 because of the number of people that died before they collected them.
Well, but my point is, just because you're 55 and you can retire doesn't mean you necessarily will, because there's a strong financial incentive to keep working.
Right.
So if you stuck around long enough, you'd be getting more than you're making at work.
No, they actually, believe it or not, cap at 100. I actually looked that up.
Oh, 100%. Okay.
So, that's sad, but it's true. Yes, Barbara.
I read the whole staffing analysis report.
Oh, my God.
I'm sorry.
It was like 1,000,000 pages.
I know, it's really interesting. And they were directed to be as conservative as possible. And I don't think those people go in necessarily, you know, with the idea that they will add people. And they recommended additional staff in order to keep up with the regulations and all of the other things.
They
I
who?
thought the
people who
consultants,
wrote
they
that-
had an
yeah.
official staffing analysis done by professionals who do that for a living.
All right.
And, you know, consultants who do
You know,
that.
you can rent geologists that'll
Well-
tell you it's okay to build on unstable cliffs.
Actually, as a geologist, I take a little bit of offense to that, and
Yeah.
that's not exactly how it works. But anyway, I think consultants buy into what they're doing, and they want to make it work. and that's why that happens, is partly why. But anyway, that's nothing to do with the point. The point is, it did make a compelling case that more staff is needed to run SAM efficiently and effectively. And I have been wanting to say that ever since I read the report.
Okay.
Well, Matthew just asked me to recount what I said to him, which is a little different than what you said. When he called up and asked me about the item, I mean, the reality is staff hires these consultants to do these reports, and there's a built-in bias, obviously. No, I can tell you right now, the last firm that came into a system and said, oh, you're overstaffed, you shouldn't be 20 people, you should be 15, that was probably the last job they ever got. So you've never heard of that firm. So there is a bias.
I think that's true, but they also,
I've been through a lot of them, and I've never seen someone come in, and I've had some
then why does
angry
anybody
act-
ever authorize those reports if they're
Because
not?
It didn't come to.
It gives them backdrop to their staffing levels. I mean, when we did this up at, we did it up in Rainbow Municipal Water District, we did it up in Ramona Municipal Water District, and the board was angry and thought we were overstaffed. And the report came in and said, no, magically, we were perfectly staffed at 60 people. So it's a built-in bias, so, you know.
We also got painted into a corner on this because Beverly had it on the agenda for closed session discussion. Half Moon Bay walked out saying it wasn't an appropriate closed session discussion. Initially, I agreed, but Beverly explained to me on the phone why it was appropriate for closed session, but because Half Moon Bay wouldn't participate, it ended up being discussed in open session, and so the report was out there, and now the Regional Water Quality Board is looking at the report, and if SAM doesn't have a minimum staffing level that is at least what the report recommends, then we're gonna have problems with the Water Quality Board. So we basically got nailed to the wall on that one.
And then the report was drafted, you know, you go back to the reason they asked for the report, when they do their NPDES permit, which is the national permit that the regional board does for them, they want a staffing level, they want a minimum staffing level in there, and that's part of the reason they did this report. Yes, Beverly, it's the driving reason why they did it, so they had to do it. Like Leonard says, you're setting in stone now a certain minimum staffing level, you know, I won't say for perpetuity, but for a long time, so.
Well, I don't think there's gonna be less work.
Well,
That's
one
it.
of the problems with SAM, which, you know,
And I know
being in my 20th year on the SAM board, I gotta tell you, the solution to every problem with SAM for some reason is always add staff. And there has to be an end point to that, but if you ask the staff, there is no end point to that. And now it's time for my periodic question. How many staff do you have for your sewer plants?
Less than Sam,
Anyway.
but we've
Well,
gotta make a profit as well, so.
I asked Chuck a number of years ago, and he said that he ran 4 sewer plants with 6 total employees. And then I asked him more recently, and he said 7. So,
I don't wanna touch that.
Wow, that's impressive.
now, to be able to compare apples here, half of Sam's, well, not half, but a significant fraction of Sam's staff is not running the sewer plant. They're doing the collection system maintenance under contract with the member
Right.
agencies.
And a lot are doing administrative and reporting and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
But anyway, that vote is beyond us, so the
Yeah.
report's been approved, so.
So, old business 7B, Half Moon Bay refused to increase the contract amount for Sam's legal counsel, so, and since we went to 2 meetings a month, that's costing more, and he's been involved with lawsuit stuff, and so it's not clear how he's gonna get paid since Half Moon Bay won't authorize any more money. And what I don't see on this agenda, but it was on a previous agenda, was another agenda item to hire somebody else to advise on revising the contract with our general counsel.
That's on 7C, Larry.
Uh,
Is that the one you're talking about?
Oh, is that what that is? Yeah, okay, right. So, I think I wasn't the only one on the board that scoffed at that one. So that went nowhere also. And old business 7D, we have, Sam has sent out the invoices to the member agencies, and for some reason, GCSD was the one that got mentioned in the manager's monthly or weekly report, as not paid yet,
Well, because,
with a note that staff says checks in the mail.
no, what I was waiting for, so they didn't officially approve the stipulated agreement until August 28th. Let's be clear on that. And then I was waiting for the judge to bless the stipulated agreement, and as Jonathan pointed out, it went to the judge, he kicked it back to us for discussion and whatnot. Jonathan subsequently told me, Chuck, you can pay the invoice prior to the judge's decision. So part of us is glad we waited a little bit anyway, but so we did pay the invoice.
I held it on Friday.
Yeah.
So I guess the only other notable thing is new business 8A. We did, if I recall, we did approve the design documents for the force main replacement, so I think that'll be moving ahead now finally.
That's not the whole, that's just the the next section, right, not the whole enforcement.
It's, I think, 2 segments plus whatever can be covered by the authorized amount of money, you know, depending on the bids. Basically, if the bids come in low, they'll have more work, but there's a fixed amount of money.
Well, they want to have one staging cost. They want to have people come over and move once, so they can do the
Right.
third section by doing that in the first program, they do that.
So they've got $1.5 million budgeted, so if the project comes in at $1.2 million, they'll have $300,000, and theoretically, they'll just keep going down the pipeline, fix as
Right.
much as they
Right.
can with a change order in $1.5
Right.
million, which I think is good for us, really. 'Cause we're gonna have to keep fixing that, so.
So I don't know that there's anything else worth
That's pretty much
reporting
it.
on.
That's it.
Probably useful for interested parties to read the minutes when they come out. But-
Okay, anything else? No, that's fine. You capture everything.
Okay,
Okay.
on the consent.
Okay, so now we have the consent agenda. So we have 4 items. Approval of August 17 meeting minutes. Approval of September warrants for $458,524.17. Approval of July 2017 financial statements and approval of assessment district distribution 3-17/18.
So moved.
I would like to hold item 7 for the
Okay.
Which one?
discussion.
So we
7.
have financial statements, okay.
And Jonathan, as a point of order, when we can we not pull them? Can Matthew discuss item number 7?
Yeah, generally, if it's just a brief correction or
Okay.
something like that, but.
But
So if you want to pull it, let's
but the definition of consent is no discussion, so if it's just a clarification, yeah, but if there's any discussion, then I think it has to be held.
Okay. So we will pull item 7.
Well, I don't know if anyone will say anything after I say what I say. So, is that discussion or not?
Oh, we can pull it?
Well, we'll pull it for now. So,
Okay. So do you want to discuss it? What do you want to do?
Okay, I'll move that we approve consent agenda items 5, 6, and 8.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay. Okay, so now we have,
I
okay, sure.
pulled this for several reasons. First, I thought we were going to have an agenda item for upcoming agenda items at the end of every meeting now, and it has not appeared. So that would have been the proper place for me to bring this up, but that's not on the agenda. So I picked number 7 because at the top it says Wells Fargo. I would like to propose an agenda item in the near future to consider changing banks. Wells Fargo is a bunch of crooks.
There you go.
They have literally committed millions of crimes,
And they actually admitted to
and
it.
they admitted to it in public. They have paid hundreds of millions in fines, and they're not near the end yet. why would we keep our money in a bank we absolutely cannot trust?
You're implying that there's any ethical bank.
Well, there are certainly smaller and more local banks right here in Half Moon Bay.
We used to
Right.
use, I don't know why we switched, but we used to use the little one near CCWD.
No, we originally had San Juan Bank, which was over the hill, and then we went to Bank of America, and then we switched to Wells Fargo. I have no problems with the Wells Fargo, I actually really like them, as far as the people that I deal with, and we haven't had any problems.
I was just suggesting it a future agenda item, not
That's fine.
discussion
Yeah,
now.
No, I totally agree with
Okay.
you, that's definitely up to you.
Okay,
All right, so you want us, we'll place that on a future agenda?
sure, sure.
Just,
Yes, okay, so yeah, yes, please.
all right.
And then we have, so
So
we have,
now I move we pass item number 7 as written.
Second.
okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, okay, so thank you, Matthew.
Who seconded?
Yeah, no, he did,
Leonard.
yeah, I second it. Okay, so now we have committee reports. Anybody report on committee?
Um,
Nothing?
Did I turn
Nothing?
too many
We-
pages here?
Let's go on to, I guess go on to 10, the other one, no committee, okay, so now we go on to the attorney's report?
No report.
Okay, so we have a general manager's report,
No further report?
administrative staff report,
Nothing for this report.
and engineer's report. Nothing else.
John Rayner's
Okay,
prepared
there
his
you go.
report.
Media.
Aside from the fact that John didn't proofread it, um,
It was difficult between his cruises.
There you go.
yeah,
You mean like the construction of the constructed? was
Yeah, that.
constructed?
which, which appears in 2 different sentences, aside from the fact that somewhere in here there's a sentence that's repeated. No. There's this comment here about inspected this connection by photographs. Performed a field inspection, but the line had been backfilled prior to arrival. I would like to see us change our sewer permit procedures to explicitly specify that if they fill it before the inspection, we're gonna make them dig it up so we can inspect it. Because this is happening way too often, and most of these guys know better.
And I don't know if you.
It doesn't happen that often, it's very rare, but we made them do a video inspection.
It's literally happened, it probably hasn't happened in
Maybe
10
twice.
years, and it literally has happened twice
Since I've been
in
here,
the past year.
You know, it happened with the Beach House Inn.
18. As far as I know, there's only been 2 of them since I've been here.
The Beach House
I mean,
Inn, don't forget that one.
Very infrequent.
Oh, I wasn't here when the beach house, yeah, it's very infrequent,
So,
yeah. Extremely.
That's because people infrequently are really trying to hide things.
so we made them TV it.
Okay.
Okay,
Do you have any time frames on the Medio Creek stuff?
That's yes, John is proceeding apace with that, so that should be real soon, if not the next couple of weeks. The interesting part about Medio Creek, I was out there, because every time I come up here, I go visit it. I don't know how many of you have been out there, so we've got our pipe on the bridge here, and the old crumbling bridge was over here. The storms came, washed out the thing, and loosened a big chunk of concrete, which hit our pipe, bent it and whatnot. Well, subsequently sometime, I'm guessing in the middle of the night, that piece actually broke off. Did not take our pipe out, and is now lying at the bottom of Medio Creek.
You're saying the piece that bent our pipe?
The piece that bent our
Concrete.
pipe that we got a bid of $80,000 from Andrini to remove. So
There you
the
go.
gods are smiling on
There
us.
you
That's at the bottom of the creek, so it's less, I don't think it was ever a crisis, but it's less of a crisis certainly than it was before, so
Okay.
that's the good news.
very good, thank you.
Wow, that's an even
I was shocked.
more rare occurrence.
I don't think I've been out there. I saw it in photos, but you can't tell how much it's bent. Is that going to require more frequent inspection to make sure it's not accumulating stuff at the elbow?
It's generally, it won't accumulated stuff at the elbow. There's no dip, it's not a dip, it's a sideways bend. As I think I told your board before, you know, if I was younger and had to come along, I'd go on the bridge, bend it back, and we'd save another $32,000 in the bypass system, but I'm not,
Okay.
and I don't. So,
Okay,
Now,
Any more
let me
discussion?
Remind everybody that Chuck said the bridge would never fail.
I know, so we have any more discussion?
Still hasn't.
Okay. Thank you for that, that's good, that's good news, that's good news.
That is good news,
Thank you, Chuck. So we have any more, anything else to discuss, or we can adjourn? Okay, so the meeting is adjourned, thank you very much for attending.
And Matthew, you'll have to refresh my memory. We did talk about putting in a,